Hello and welcome. Today I'm excited to finally be talking about Trails into Reverie. It's been 2 years since I started my Trails journey, and I started with Trails in the Sky first chapter and played through every game throughout the course of 1 year, and I loved that journey. That journey was incredible. And I wish I'd been able to play Reverie right after Cold Steel 4, right? But we had to wait for a little while. And I want to specify that I love this series. This review is going to be very different from the other game reviews that we do on this channel. It is a Trails review, right? If you are somebody that goes, hey, this new Trails game has just come out, is this my time to get into Trails? I don't think Reverie is where you should start. I think it is an incredible game in many ways. It's very weird and fun in the way that it's constructed, but it is not a great first entry. It is the finale, as it were, of 2 full arcs, with some things wrapping up from the original arc. It is 10 games in the making, and it is wonderful. But it's not where you should start if you're looking at this and going, man, Trey's been talking about this on the podcast. He's been talking about how much he loves it. I really want to play Trails. Honestly, start it. Trails in the Sky first chapter. If we have a whole video about this, I don't need to rehash the whole thing here. I'll link that video both in the description and at the end of the video as one of the videos that shows up on screen. But there's a couple different places you could start. This is not where I recommend you start. And so I will do the rest of this review with the understanding that this is 10 games in the making, that it's very unique, very special compared to most sequels, but that it's with the understanding that you have played the rest of the games or don't care about the overarching story and are going to start here just because it's the new one. With that in mind, what makes Trails to Reverie so special in my mind? Trails into Reverie is Hajimari no Kiseki, right? That's the original title. It is really cool in that it is like Trails in the Sky 3rd. It is a dungeon crawler that also has a really interesting Trails to Walk system that allows you to flip between 3 main characters, Lloyd, Reen, and C. And throughout those 3, they converge in little ways and eventually will all come together, of course, to be able to tell one big overarching story from 3 different perspectives, which makes it very different from any of the individual games, all while having the dungeon aspect from Trails in the Sky 3rd that allows you to find the doors, again, the Daydreams now, to be able to get story and things that otherwise would have been really hard to fit in narratively where you're at, but little glimpses and fulfillments of stories that have been told all the way through the series. It gives you an incredibly big cast of characters spread out between these 3 different trails, the different routes, right? And I still wish there were a couple characters that weren't available that I wish had been playable, but at the same time, man, the cast is huge. So big at some points that it's hard to navigate who's in your party and who isn't. And I wish they had used the TRC, as I'm going to call it right now in the non-spoiler section, party screen for everywhere, because, man, that would have been so much easier to manage. But from this non-spoiler angle, Trails into Reverie is so satisfying. Again, as I said, we're going through this with the understanding that you've played the rest now. It pays off so much. And some of my personal favorite characters get their arcs finished in this game in a way that I found really narratively satisfying. It doesn't quite hit me as hard as Trails in the Sky 3rd did. To Meet Again Someday is an incredible song. And when that song plays, I broke, right? I thought I was going to get a moment like that here. The song that plays is very good, but it's not quite the same. Everybody gets a line, but it's not quite the same as the ending of Trails in the Sky 3rd. But in a lot of ways, this game is our goodbye, or at least see you later, for most of these characters. We won't see most of them again for a while, probably. And that's not even counting how long it takes Falcom and Nissa to get the games to us. I would love to be playing in Calvert right now, but it's probably going to be years before we get to see some of these characters again. So it is a wonderful send-off, not just to their arcs, but also to them. And it also wraps up just about all the loose ends from the Crossbell and the, almost said Sky, the Arabonia games. It is incredible. And if you're somebody that has played the rest of the games, I firmly recommend you try it. If you're somebody that hasn't and you say, well, do I need to go play those other games? Is it worth it? Is this 10-game path, reading books in the games, worth it? Yeah, personally, I think so. Just because you're not going to find anything else like it in video games. It is a standalone experience in a lot of ways that requires a hefty price. It is a lot of hours to get through all that. But in my opinion, it's absolutely worth it. I'm a super fan at this point, and I can't go back. I am so happy to have got into this series, and I can't wait for the next one. And I will play them as they come out so as not to get behind, but I absolutely adore them. With all that said, then, let's get into our spoiler-heavy review for Trails into Reverie. Spoilers are on screen now. If you are still watching, then please be aware that I'm about to spoil everything, starting at the beginning and working my way through. I really like Act 1. I don't love the prologue. I think part of the big problem with the prologue is it starts off really good, right? That first initial hit is really solid. I just don't love having to climb Orcus Tower again. And I know that they cut a lot of it shorter, right? And it's building up everything that's going to happen. It's the setup with the Ebon Defense Force and everything there. I really wanted to know what was going on everywhere else. And having to slowly climb the tower again just really didn't, I don't know. It didn't sit right with me. I do think that whole confrontation at the top is super cool and pays off in a great way, right? Like, it's unbelievable how much of this prologue is important for the rest of the game. I just found it to be kind of slow comparatively. Getting into Act 1, though, I really like the way they split up the acts here, where everybody had different sections of the act that allowed you to go over them between Lloyd and Reen and C, and we'll get to see. I really liked Lloyd's route here, building back up into, hey, you know, Crossbell's free, and we're walking away around it, and get to talk to people again. There was a deep hurt in my gut that was like, no, Crossbell's not going to be allowed to be free. It's just not going to happen. I know it's not. I want it to happen so bad. It's not going to happen. And sure enough, it doesn't happen. And we get to see Rufus Alberea, who, I'm just going to throw this out here. Again, we are in spoilers. Rufus Alberea is one of my favorite characters in the series. I loved Rufus throughout Cold Steel, and especially in Cold Steel 4. I loved Rufus. Rufus was the villain, spoilers again, that I felt the most for, even though Lecter, I guess, is the one that I had the most context for, because Rufus's motivation made perfect sense to me. He was terrible. He did absolutely the wrong things, but his motivations made sense, and I really, really like the story that was told in Cold Steel 4 with him. I love his voice actor. His voice is super distinct. We're going to get to that. His voice is super distinct, and I really, really like him. So seeing him again at the signing ceremony was just a complete gut punch. And then, of course, we also see a masked person that I immediately knew who that was. We get to see Dieter Kreuss and Garcia Rossi. And we get to see a guy, we're going to get to him, but we get to see a guy in a gold helmet. And I was like, who is this guy? I don't recognize this guy. And that's because at that point I hadn't read 3 and 9. I read 3 and 9 before I finished Act 1. Because I was recommended that I needed to read it right away if I hadn't. So I read it before I finished Act 1, and I'm real glad I did. Yeah, the whole signing ceremony was great, and everything to do there. I'm trying not to make this review a million hours long, but I feel like it's gonna be. Going over to Reen's route, I didn't love the whole, hey, you got to prove yourself again to Matthias Vander and Claire Revelt, but I get it. It was Matthias hasn't really been introduced. This was his chance. We got to see Kurt get thrown off a cliff and crawl his way back up. I love Kurt Vander, one of my favorite characters in the entire series. You know, and then getting to have Matthias Vander try to help Reen through what he's struggling with. The, hey, I still have this, even though it should be gone. What am I supposed to do with it? Do I embrace it and risk killing people I care about? Or do I trust my friends to stop me? And that's you know, that's been Reen from the beginning. He's never really got over that. And he does in this game in a way that I found really satisfying. I like it a lot. I'm trying to straighten the green screen because I keep leaning back to talk and I'm messing it up more. And that leads us to C's route. And so when I first heard about C, my brain was like, oh, I know who this is. I know exactly. C? This must be Cedric. I was wrong. And when I heard C speak for the first time, my brain went, I know that voice. That's a very distinct voice. Even with the modulation on it, that's a very distinct voice. That can't be that character, though. I don't know why I'm being so vague about this. We're in full spoilers. This is your last warning. From here, we're going all spoilers, right? I really didn't think it could be Rufus because I'd seen Rufus at the signing ceremony, which was exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to sow that seed of doubt, right? And so getting to see Rufus here and getting to play as Rufus, getting Rufus Alborea as like a playable character was incredible. And I figured out shortly after when he was talking, I was like, yeah, no, this is him. This is Rufus. And that's not even getting into Swin and Nadia. I did a video where I read 3 and 9 because I had not read it in Cold Steel 4. I fell in love with Swin and Nadia. Those characters are great. They were in my party for big chunks of this game. I love Swin and Nadia. And we're going to get to Lapis, because we don't get a lot of Lapis in Act 1, but I really like Lapis as well. But I love Swin and Nadia. And getting to see Rufus, I know he didn't actually adopt them, but kind of adopt these kids and try to give them something better. It's really good, man. It's really good. I'm not going to turn the waterworks on now. We got a whole game to go. And then we got the Daydreams to talk about. Oh, I love this game. It's just a perfect duality of dungeon crawl, dig deep into the combat system, build the characters however you want, and story. And by the way, I built my Reen to have almost 5,000 attack. He killed most things on turn 1. Get into Act 2, right? Where we try to get to Armorica and we stop when we get to the mirror. But then from there, the ancient battleground and everything there, the reveal with Risha and Ilya, Sansan and everything happening there with Heiyue, and all of that is really good. I liked Armorica, and I really liked Lloyd trying to go back to Crossbell and then having to see that he can't, you know? That was all really good. All of that, I think, is kind of overshadowed by how good the Heimdall stuff is. Between Rufus and Swin and Nadia and Lapis going around the city, and Nadia and Lapis going on their tour and running into Class 7 and getting Millium's Arcus unit, all of that is really good. But then it gets straight into, hey, there is the Ebon Defense Forces down here, and C is going to use Reen to be able to figure that out, and all of that was great. Straight up into the showdown in Himmel Cemetery, which was really, really good. I love these characters. I love their interactions. And having Crow be like, I'm hurt you even thought it could be me. Was, oh, I love Crow. Crow Armbrust. Look, I'm gonna lay this down. My top 5 at the end of this game. My top 5 characters in this game. We'll start with 5. I don't know if I can come up with 5 right now. I mean, I know the 5, but I don't know how to order them right now. Okay, number 1. Oh, Number one's Estelle Bright. A very close second is Olivert Rice Ornor, with a very close third of Randolph Orlando, with a very close fourth of Rufus Alberea, and right behind him is my boy Crow Armbrust. I love those 5 so much. And beforehand, Rufus was not top 5, Crow was 4, and it was Kurt Vander was number 5. Oh no, before that was Kevin. Kevin Graham was number 5. Kevin Graham is probably number 6 still, and Kurt Vander's number 7. At some point, I'll do like a top 50 or something. I did a ranking video a long time back. I need to redo that now that I'm done with Reverie, because some of those people have changed. I loved getting to see Crow taunt Rufus C, right? That was all great. Moving into Act 3, we start with Rufus, and we get a really powerful scene aboard the Argo, which we'll talk about the Argo, because I'm gonna go over each Daydream briefly individually. I really like that scene of Lapis, you know, talking to Rufus and saying, "You are who you are. Why do you need a meaning for your existence? You already exist." Just only Lapis would have looked at it like that, you know? And that's exactly what he needed to hear. And that leads into infiltrating Crossbell, getting to the doll studio, and from there, the mirror. Also, they get Ren around this point, and it's great to have her back. Love Ren. I think I went Lloyd next, where you go to the hospital, to the underground freight line, and you get Agate until you hit the mirror. And then I went to Reen with the Nord Highlands and going through the northern Nord Highlands and trying to figure out what's going on there. It was like immediately given that guy was working for the Ebon Defense Force. It was immediately given to me. I just knew it when I heard him talking. And the fact that none of them saw through that, I was like, all right, Reen had a hint, but I feel like Reen probably should have called that one. Either way, from there we get into the corridor, and we'll talk about the corridor after we finish the story. We'll talk about the corridor as a whole and then get into the Daydreams. But we have a good period of time that I spent in the corridor here, just playing around with different people, doing mini missions, trying to upgrade stuff, playing Palm Porty, playing Vantage Masters, having a good time. And then it was right back out again to the doll studio. And that led into Lloyd's route as we bounced back and forth, going between the two and trying to get through the RF military factory and the Rosenberg studio, and all of that was really good. And look, we're gonna get into some deep story stuff in just a second, and I promise I'm not trying to make this review 1,000 hours long. I really want to be as concise as possible without leaving out details that I feel are vitally important to the sake of this review. When I saw McBurn, I was shocked. I could not understand why he would be there. And partway through the fight, I went, oh, he's a fake. And then, when he broke afterwards, I was like, oh, okay, all right. So he's able to make a copy of McBurn, and at that point, all the rest of the game, I was fine. I was like, all right, yeah, no, of course that's a copy. If he can make a copy of McBurn, he can make a copy of that. And I thought it was just Novartis. Of course, there's a lot more that we find out later. But that leads us into a wonderful scene with Lapis on Rufus Fruit, where Rufus Alberea finds meaning to his own life again. Not because he's doing it for somebody else. Not because he's decided to try and surpass somebody else. But because he's decided that this little girl needs his help. It doesn't matter that she's a doll. This little girl needs his help. And he cares about her. And so we have, every single time, Estelle adopts Rin, right? Obviously Cassius does. But, you know, follow with me here. You know what I'm saying. Lloyd adopts Kia. Reen adopts Altina, sorta. Rufus adopts Lapis. All of them gotta have a little girl, gotta have a daughter. That is the Trails thing at this point. You gotta have a daughter. Kevin Graham doesn't have a daughter. He's not in the series anymore. If he'd gotten a daughter, he'd still be here. I miss him every day. He's mentioned in this game, and they don't show a model, and he doesn't get a line, and I'm still mad about it, Falcom. Anyway, great, wonderful scene, and they bring up Ian Grimwood, and ooh, you know how much I love Azure. If you've been watching these reviews, you know how much I love Azure. There we go to Reen's route. We figure out what's going on with the 23rd Division. We fight some tanks. That was a cool sequence. That was really fun. We save the Courageous 2, and we have a really cool sequence where Olivier and Charizard have to, like, break free. I was a little sad that I didn't get to play as Charizard. I really like Charizard Harvey. I guess she's not Harvey anymore. I really like Charizard Arnor? That feels weird to say, but yeah. The Silver Streak, I really like her. But it does make sense for me that she didn't want to fight because she's pregnant. And I got unreasonably happy, even when they're fighting on the Courageous, of like, look, man, Olivier's had a bad hand played to him over and over again. The man never gave up, and now he gets to be happy. Now he gets to have a family. He gets to have the love of his life. They get to have a kid. That's all I want from my boy. Just want him to be happy. And that leads into just like nonsense in the best way possible of, up until this point, Reen's route had been kind of separate from the others, right? He interacted with Rufus, but then we had all of Act 3 where Rufus and Lloyd were kind of working together, you know? And Reen summoning Tierfing S, which I'm just now realizing is, yeah, that's the same Tierfing S from that Daydream. Man, this game is great. To fight off against a Divine Knight, and then he has an eye that's gold and hair of silver. Now, I got sent from somebody, from a commenter, a route order they recommended that I follow. So even though I desperately wanted to know what was going on with Reen at that point, I started with Lloyd in Act 4. And going through everything with Lloyd there, working my way forward, it was really good. I got to about Mains, I guess, before I switched over to Rufus's route and did all of Rufus's route. I did the whole thing and then went back to Lloyd's route and did all of Lloyd's route. I'm a little sad that it didn't play Miss You from Azure when they talk to Randy when he comes out to find him on the road to Mains, because that's my favorite scene in Azure. There's another scene in Azure that's real close, but that's my favorite scene in Azure. When I think about Trails to Azure, that's the scene I think of, is a scene with Randy and him saying that he just might forgive himself. And it's a great scene. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. So it's a little sad they didn't play Miss You again. But they made it up for me with the conversation that Lloyd and Randy have in Mains, of how Randy's taking the bonds that he has and he's trying to convert them into strength to be able to go risk his own life and give his life up if need be to be able to save them all. And Lloyd has to bring him back down to earth and be like, look, that's not what any of us want. We want your strength, but we want your strength to help us so that you can come back and be Randy with us, not so that you die in the process. And just, it was a really good scene. Really good scene. Duvalie in Rufus's route. Duvalie's introduction is great. She has come to try and kill Rufus, and I can't blame her after what he did, and neither can he. And he still plays dirty because he has a job to do here. He has a purpose to fulfill. But after that, he's willing to duel her again, you know? And getting to the prison, I forgot to mention Arios's robot completely in the Reen's route before, but getting to the prison, getting to team up with Arios McLean, and getting to go find Ian Grimwood and getting the truth about Elysium. Just, yeah, no, that explains a lot. Didn't expect that at all. But in a world where we have septarians that are giving people their earnest heart's desire and playing around with causality, why not, right? Like, why not? So I really enjoyed that. I thought all of that was really fun. And Swin and Nadia finally getting their revenge. Swin being able to get revenge for Ace, Nadia being able to try and protect Swin while also getting revenge for her brother. Just really dang good, man. Finishing up Lloyd's Route, getting into Moon Temple and everything there, and the declaration of Supreme Leader Rufus. It was all really, really good. I like these characters a lot. Getting to see the townspeople of Mainz show up to help fight, that was all really good, and I liked it a lot. I really did. And that gets into Reen's Route, which was the weirdest one of them for Act 4. I saved it for the end because I was recommended to save it for the end, and I wanted to know what was going on with Reen, but it starts without telling you. Then you go to Michelum, and you have a whole sequence with Miss Schneider, Mecha Mishi, and it wasn't bad, but like I got into that right after coming off the tails of the truth about Elysium and Rufus' declaration. It's like, look, man, I don't super care about Mecha Mishi. It's great that he's gonna go try and be with his family again and atone for what he's done, but then you get into the Castle of Mirrors and the true king of the world, which is another Reen. And I knew instantly then, without question, I knew where this Reen came from. Because I remembered Azure, and I remembered what happened there. And I remember how time had been messed with. And I knew without question this was the Reen because of what he'd said at the end of the previous act. This was the Reen from the bad ending of Cold Steel 4. And I mentioned in my Azure review how much I loved when what was originally thought to be played off as, hey, this is how things could have happened, or an alternate ending, anything like that. When those wind up being canon, I love that in video games. And it doesn't happen often. So getting to see that Reen here was just immediately like, yeah, no, I know who that is. And that's incredibly tragic. Because that means that's also canon. There was a reality where that's how that ended. And it's the little moments of him making comments about Pro or Millium. Just how much people have grown. Just, oh. That poor Reen, man. Fighting with Ishmelga, as we find out later. But that's for the finale. In the finale, we get into the fight for liberty, right? And all three crews, as each one of them tries to fight their way to go stop the Retributive Tower and Project Babel, right? Now, it wasn't until I was looking back through the Trails to Walk originally, after I beat the game, that I realized that the Retributive Tower was Project Babel. It makes sense in hindsight. Babel Tower, biblical reference, and it makes sense. I wish they had called it that like one more time in game, maybe, just to help me go, oh. So there's a couple little things here that I don't love. I forgive it all. With how the finale wraps up. But I don't love how Juno Naval Fortress gets wiped out, and then they just go, it's a good thing nobody was in there. Sure. All right, I guess nobody was in Juno Naval Fortress. The impact of that moment hinged on there being a whole contingent of soldiers there. And then you find out from, yeah, nobody was there. And it makes sense if you've already gotten the Daydream that deals with Juno Naval Fortress. I hadn't at this point. And I wish that was one that you were forced to get beforehand, so that maybe you could know that when it happens and be like, oh, thank goodness it was Juno Naval Fortress. But at the same time, it's a little thing for me that I didn't really like. Man. Retributive Tower. Really fun dungeon, honestly. I liked it a lot. The two sides splitting up Swin and Nadia, who kind of stole the show in a lot of ways in this game, with both of them having to rely on other people, with Nadia having to rely on Lloyd and Swin having to rely on Reen. It felt really good to have them as a part of the team, and also to have them have to move past you know, but are they going to be okay? To no, I'm going to choose to believe they're okay. Because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to function, and I need to find them. I think that's a really cool sequence, and I like those characters a lot. That leads into the best scene in this game, in my opinion, without question. The Daydreams are great, but it is when Rufus Alborea steps back out of the teleport. I guess we should probably talk about the other Reen and how they beat him, and the really cool fight where you get to use the various members of Class 7 and their Zoldats and trying to take on what is it? I've got the name up here. It's Zoa Gilstein and trying to take on Zoa Gilstein, and you have the spirit of Alamar and the spirit of Ordis and the spirit of El Prado come to help, and just a really, really great moment there, and Lapis using her power, and Rufus taking the hit for Lapis, and El Prado being damaged, and it's really good stuff, right? All of that. Reen defeating the other Reen and severing Ishmelga from him so that he can finally be free right as he dies. Really, really good stuff. But none of it is as good as when Rufus steps back. And then while they are all trying to figure out what just happened, Rufus Alborea plays the biggest and best move of his life and convinces all the world to hate him. It is... Rufus doesn't know it, right? Rufus wouldn't accept it. But it is a move that I think even Gileath Osborne would have been impressed by. I think it is a kind of move that even Osborne himself would not have seen coming. And in that moment, I believe Rufus did surpass him. Say what you will, I love Osborne, but Rufus made the world hate him. He played his part perfectly. And all the world's hatred focuses on the retributive power, and the beam comes down. And it was just a warning from Elysium. One last warning to Lapis. And so you get the team together, and you go to rescue Rufus. And that team includes Lloyd Bannings. And I didn't even talk about Ian Grimwood. We're going to get back to Ian. And you take... and you save him with the help of Reen. The other Reen. You save him. And he doesn't understand why you did it. And it's such a good moment of Rufus coming to terms with other people care for him. Other people love him. As Lloyd arrests him. It's so good. It's so good. Everybody goes to move on. But they get called to the corridor one more time. And we're going to get into the corridor. We're going to get into the memories and everything. But I do want to go back and highlight Ian Grimwood. Because Ian Grimwood is such a great character in Azure. The reveal that he is the one who killed Guy is heartbreaking. Arios can't believe it. Lloyd can't believe it. None of them, Ian himself can't believe it, right? He did what he had to do to protect the goal that they had. And he regrets it every day. So from his prison cell, helping this AI to learn how to be good to people. The only reason our heroes win is because Ian Grimwood was given a chance to make things better. We get to see, of course, Hayue betray Rufus, and we get to see Garcia and Dieter betray Rufus, right? We get to see the Supreme Leader. We get to see Ilya lose to Risha, and it's a really solid moment. And get to see that Ilya had also given into the same thing the rest of the SSS had given into, where they thought they had to save everyone. It was a responsibility they had instead of something they looked for and aimed for on their own. All that was great, but none of it hit as hard for me from the crossbow characters as much as Ian Grimwood getting a chance to make things right. Still, my favorite scene of the game is Rufus stepping back and making himself the enemy of the world. But let's get into the corridor, because the scenes where everybody was leaving each other behind and everybody was going and everybody was split up, that's really strong, right? Again, not as strong for me as Trails in the Sky 3rd, but still very, very good. Saying farewell to everybody, but it's not farewell yet, because you have a whole sequence in the corridor that's all story, and it leads you to find the original OZ and fight off another aspect, the prototype of Kia, as it were, of the Azure Tree, of that Septarian, the Septarian of Mirage, and getting to have that wonderful farewell then, where every character get a chance to talk, just is really good. It didn't make me cry like Trails in the Sky 3rd did, but it was really good. But let's talk about these memories, these daydreams as they're called. Some of these are mostly fun, right? Some of these are like, hey, just a little glimpse into these characters and what's going on in their lives, and we're having a good time. Buried Trails, Beaten Trails, Blaze Trails, right? Swin and Nadia meet Risha, and it's really good. Nadia winds up calling her RX, and they get to connect with another assassin that isn't working for anybody anymore, that has gone rogue, and it's a really good moment. The moment where they're both like, you know, hey, I'm not going to let you bring me in, before they realize that nobody sent either one of them, right? Really good. Day in the lives of the SSS, just getting to have a little bit of time where they relax, hang out, have a good time, cook a meal. Really good stuff, right? St. Estrea's Violet and Bloom, where Kurt has to go undercover into St. Estrella and fight a demon. Sure. Yeah. Cortina. I couldn't think of any better name for that. Like, come on. That was a fine sequence. That one was okay. Home Sweet Turf was the first one that I was just like, yeah, which was Wazy, or Wazzy as they call him in this game, which really threw me for a loop, because I've been calling him Wazy this whole time. And Vald, as they get back home and they start fighting, and Noelle has to break it up, and you get some really good moments here of the rest of the Saber Vipers having to forgive Vald and work through that in a way that I found really good. That one hit hard for me. Down the Rabbit Hole was good. Getting Lammy back, liked it a lot. A lot of little bits of information here too about the Black Workshop and things that are set up, and the OZ units, and you don't even realize at the time they're setting stuff up, right? It's really good. To Your Blessed Future made me cry. The Phantom Thief, Blue Blanc, and Olivier have been rivals way back since the beginning, right? And Blue Blanc giving them this gift the way that he did, and getting to see Olivier and Shara happy, it really hit me hard. And then that moment of the mention of Luciola, just, I love these two characters a lot, and I just want them to be happy, and they are right now, before some other continent destroying thing happens and they're not happy anymore. But right now they're happy, and that's good enough for me. I love these characters. A Maiden's Melancholy was fine. I guess we needed to address Claire and the rest of her family, and it was good in that regard. It worked out. It had some hints to the Emperor, which the Emperor's hinted at a couple times here, all of which are like him gathering the artifacts, right? But it was good. It was fine. The Path Chosen was really good, not because I like Angelica, because I still don't, but because there's a really wonderful line in here while Toa's trying to choose what she wants to do, where Crow is basically like, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty crazy. I died, you know? And just, man, I love Crow. Justice Adieu was really good. I like Dudley and Machias bonding over coffee. That was really solid. The Fallen Prince was really good. I did not expect we'd get so much of Cedric here, and getting to help him work his way up through the organization, through the society, was really cool. I liked that a lot. Project Orbital Gear 4 Part 1 and Part 2 were interesting. I still really don't like that they're pushing Tita and Agate as a relationship. The Agate and Tita relationship from the Sky trilogy was very much an older brother, younger sister kind of thing. And it really doesn't sit right with me. But at the same time, there's some fun stuff in here. Tita, I love Tita as a character, and she's desperately trying to carve out her own niche among all these other super smart people, and getting to see her choose to give up her project to save people that at the time we don't know who they are, but later on we're gonna find out is the Duke, the Archduke. Just, yeah, wonderful. Wishes of a Witch was really good. We finally get to wrap up that unsolved mystery of what happened to Emma's mom. And we got to spend some time with Vita as well, who I really like. Vita, as I've said a few times, is one of my favorite characters. And Radio Trista. And I really liked this one. This one was really solid. Emma's mom was cool. Emma's mom was pretty great. The More Things Change was really good. I love Lecter. And getting to see Miss Von Oslis again, getting to see Chloe again was really good. But we also got to see Lucy again. And just Lecter being able to give up that part of him that feels like he's spinning his wheels to be able to just relax around them again was really good. And also the look into the Calvard Intelligence Division was really solid. So I liked that a lot. Ultimate Wilderness Cooking was really fun. Getting to play as Freddy and insta-kill all those enemies to get their stuff, to do some cooking. And then just the cooking itself, the whole cooking judge thing, that was really fun. One lucky stone and one lucky ship. That's how Nine Valley gets the Argo. That was a really fun one of all the training and getting to see Jingo and Shirley bond. That was really fun. I liked that one a lot. Unlimited Blade Crafts was really fun. Unlimited Blade Works reference. And getting to have Reen and Duvali team up, where Duvali helps Reen to get past part of what he's dealing with. While you get to fight some really cool characters. You get to see Cassius again. You get to see Zex again. It was really fun, and I liked it a lot. That was maybe one of the best ones. But a Look on the Bright Side was really good. Look, I know people are probably tired of hearing me talk about how much I love the Bright family. I've been with them since the beginning, man. How could I not love them? I really love getting to see Ren finally call Cassius dad. And then, of course, she jokes about it afterwards. But just getting to see the four of them on a vacation, having a good time. Something goes wrong. They all act together. They get to beat up Gilbert. It's a good time. With this Apache, it's a good time. I love the Bright family so much. So good. I could play a whole game about them. Maybe a whole 3 games about them. But wonder where I could do that. One Step Forward was surprising. I didn't think we'd get one about Mary and Makarov, but I'm glad we did, because it also was about Bardius and Aurelia. And I really liked it. And of course, set up again the Tierfing S's. It was really fun getting to see more of Bardius, but it wasn't Mary that he was in love with. It was Miss Le Guin, Golden Rakshasa. Good luck, Bardius. That's all I can say. And there's a really nice credit in the credits to both Scott Tierna, who, again, thanks so much for your work on this series, mate. You're one of the reasons I fell in love with this series, because you kept talking about it and I had to check it out. And you are missed. And for the original voice actor for Wallace Bardius, and just the great way that he portrayed that voice originally, and the great way that the new voice actor did, you are also missed. One Step Forward was really good. Thor's Open House was incredible. Ash, and getting a whole section on Ash. I know I didn't mention Ash earlier when I was talking about my favorite characters, but if you've watched my 3 and 4 reviews, Cold Steel 3 and 4, then you know that I love Ash Carbide. And so getting to see a little bit of him there and focus on what he's dealing with and how he's choosing to move past it, it was all really, really good. And I'm glad that people love him, because I do too. Through Memories Aglow was a really interesting one. There is no other way I could think of that we would get to see from Gileath Osborne's perspective, right? And so getting to spend that time with him and see things from his perspective, it made it all work in a way of, I know some people, I wasn't one of these people, but I saw comments on the Cold Steel 4 review that were like, hey, I just don't buy that Osborne was a good guy all along. I think this did a really good job showing that he did care. He just couldn't let himself care. Like, he fought it every day to not care. And it's the comment about Milliam, where he says she's what the rest of the Ironbloods needed. It's a shame what she's been made to do. But he's fully committed to doing it. Just what an interesting character, and I think through Memories Aglow just makes him infinitely more interesting than he already was. Look back to look forward is really interesting because we get to find stuff about President Rocksmith and what's going on in Calvard, and he makes a deal with the Society and the Grand Master. Also, this is just a personal theory. Please don't tell me if I'm right or wrong, if Kuro or Kuro 2 has said anything about it. The Grand Master's that prototype Kia, right? The Grand Master is OZXX, right? The hair color's right. The eye color's right. Really feels to me like that's what's going on here. And it would make a lot of sense for the Phantasmal Blaze plan to have something to do with that Septarian. I'm just saying, it feels... And you say, well, Phantasmal Blaze plan's already been finished. It's already done. Gileath Osborne took over it and ruined it. Well, yeah, that doesn't change the fact that the Grand Master would have been in charge of it back then. It just feels... Oh, no. The fact that McBurn can show up there and then says that if he made the comment of who the Grandmaster really is, he wouldn't be able to continue being human here. Just, ooh, there's some really interesting things happening there. And then Beyond the Reverie. And Beyond the Reverie is special because it gives us a look into Calvard. And man, does it make me want the Calvard games right now. The first one is about Ren. And it's Ren in school. And it's really good. I really like this glimpse into Ren, right? Not just who she is, but also what she's dealing with, the things she's trying to achieve, answers she's trying to find, everything going on with... The first one's not Ren. What am I talking about? We'll finish talking about Ren's. The first one's Reen. Everything there with her trying to figure out what's going on with the Ormits and with the Foundation and the Epstein Foundation and the Vern Company and everything happening there is all really, really good. I like all of that. Her throwing off the student council president stuff and becoming student council president. I'm really excited for the Kuro games, especially if it means we get to see more Ren. Because despite the fact that they've given me Altina and Milliam and Kia and all these other wonderful daughteroos in the form of Lapis as well, Ren was the first daughter. And so there's always going to be a special place in my heart for that little girl that I helped save with Joshua and Estelle, you know? But another Hot Springs paradise is the one about Reen. And he runs into a swordsman that seems to be a divine blade of the Zeroth form. After having a really cool fight against some ninjas, that's written really well. I could just sit and read fights spread out like that forever. Reen gets to be a total boss in that fight. Even if he does ultimately lose, he still gets to really have a good showing there. And this person that's been introduced, this girl that is called Princess at one point here, that seems to be a divine blade of the Zeroth form, is really, really cool. I really want to know what's going on with her and her weird ice sword. That has me really excited. And then finally we get Forward Sword in Hand, which is about a new A-rank bracer in Calvard. Elaine, I believe the name is. I'm going to double check that real quick. Give me just a second. Yeah, Elaine Auclair. And and getting to see her journey. I was really invested in this one. This is the one most out of all of them that made me just want to be in Calvard right now. I was really invested in her story. The strange thing going on where the guy shows up and crushes the bodies, the children she rescues, her mindset and all this, getting to see Zen again, and the stuff with her and her childhood friend. I really, really want to dig into that, but I gotta wait. All in all, I feel like I'm barely talking about these, even though these took a long while to get through, because I was sitting and reading and absorbing everything. I really, really liked the Daydreams. Do I like them more than the Doors from Sky Third? Most of them, no, probably not. Most of them, they're about the same, right? There's a couple Doors in Sky the Third that I think are like incredibly top tier. The one with Estelle, the one with Ren, the one with Olivier and Osborne. But there's a couple Daydreams here that are going to stick with me in exactly the same way. And ultimately, I think this game is worth it just for the Daydreams. But it's also worth it for an incredible story where my boy Rufus Albarella gets to redeem himself, man. And now he gets to roam the continent with Swin and Nadia and Lapis. It's going to be great. I really like these characters. I really like this story. Getting to play as a bunch of the characters in the Reverie corridor later was really cool. Getting to have McBurn on the team was like, yeah, okay. This is a really long time coming. Trails into Reverie. I've been waiting for it for a long time. And it did not disappoint me at all. I love this game. I feel like I didn't go into as much detail in this one as I have in previous reviews, and I'm sorry if I haven't. I thought that I tried to give everything its due. There weren't as many moments that just like knocked me out of my seat in this game. I talked about the two, right? But there were a lot of little moments that I adored in this game, and I'm gonna miss these characters really bad. As much as Reen was kind of just like the guy that I didn't love all that much in Cold Steel 1, but came to really like in Cold Steel 2, I really, really like him. And I'm gonna miss him. As much as Lloyd went from a character that I love in Zero and Azure to being, I didn't necessarily love him at the start of Reverie, I'm really gonna miss him in the SSS. I'm definitely gonna miss Randy. I do feel like because of how big this cast is, some characters kind of got pushed to the back. Eustace got a couple good moments with Rufus, but we didn't get a bunch of them. The biggest one, of course, being that moment at the end where he gets to come and tell his brother that he needs him. You know, that as long as he's alive, that's what matters. It's a really good moment. But for all the little times that characters didn't get to shine, like Crow joins the team and then kind of doesn't get another big scene up until Ordine is there right at the end with Ordine, you know. But man, for all of that, the new characters got to absolutely shine. Lapis was great. Swin and Nadia were stellar, and Rufus Albarella was incredible. Arios got to wrap up some of his stuff. Duvali got to wrap up some of her stuff. It was really, really good. And I'm gonna miss them. For the last 2 years, they've been able to still be in the back of my mind, just waiting for this game. But now their stories are done, right? And that's tough. Because I like these characters a lot. Old Class 7, new Class 7, the SSS. They're all really good. And getting to see the Imperial picnicking group. It was really good. This is a really good game. And as much as it may not have as many hard-hitting moments as some of the others, the ones where it does hit hard, it knocks it out of the park. I will always remember Rufus pulling Lapis out of that pile and just saying, there you are. I will always remember Rufus stepping back out of the teleport. It's a great game. And ultimately, where would I rank it? Because at the end of all the others, I did a ranking, right? I still think Sky Second Chapter is my favorite game in the series. I adore Sky Second Chapter. And then I think right after that is probably Trails to Reverie. Maybe Trails to Azure, then Trails into Reverie. Oh, Cold Steel 4 is real good, though. Trails to Sky 3's real good, though. Okay. We're going to go Trails in the Sky Second Chapter. Trails to Azure. Trails into Reverie. Trails of Sky 3rd. Trails of Cold Steel 4. Trails of Cold Steel 3. Trails into Zero. Trails of Zero. Trails of Cold Steel 2. No, Sky First Chapter, Trails of Cold Steel 2, Trails of Cold Steel 1. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. I really liked this game. I'd love to talk about it with you in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Bring up some stuff that didn't stand out as much to me in my notes when I was writing all this down that really mattered to you, and we'll talk about it. But I did want to just give a quick shout out to the soundtrack. There were a couple times where I'd rather have had some Azure songs in there, but there's a couple times where Sky songs play, and they got me real good. And there's a couple times where Crossbell songs play, and they got me real good. And there's a couple times where Erebonia songs played, and they got me real good. So, let me know your thoughts down below. I need to do another ranking of characters because my opinions have changed. I really loved this game, and I wish I could put into words how much I love what they did with Rufus, because it is an absolute slam dunk. Rufus Alborea was the character that had the most unfinished business in my mind. He was the character that gave an incredible speech in Cold Steel 4 and then was just left to try and make things right. And I think he absolutely did. I really love that Olivier pardons him at the end there. Pardons him in that, you know, hey, Rufus Alborea is dead. You got to be somebody else now. Got to be you. I love this game. I love this game. It took me 72 hours, I think, to do everything. I love this game. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been the Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. Trails into Reverie. That's to offer.